The Oscar goes to Jordan Peele, Get Out.
This is the first Oscar for three-time nominee Jordan Peele. He is also nominated tonight as director and producer of Get Out.
This means so much to me. I stopped writing this movie about 20 times because I thought it was impossible. I thought it wasn't gonna work. I thought no one would ever make this movie. But I kept coming back to it because I knew if someone let me make this movie, that people would hear it and people would see it.
In some way, it has to be autobiographical. If you're telling a story and you're not bearing part of your soul or telling your truth, I think that you're not doing that right. Certainly, that's the case for me. I think when I invented that party sequence, that was a huge moment for me. These fears, justified or not justified, however they come, these fears of mine. I've never seen them portrayed in film. The whole process of figuring out what this movie was about was digging deep and exploring my fears first, and trusting that if I got that across, we're all human. We're all made up of the same emotions.
The party scene in Get Out, for example, it's a scene where it's a group. He's the only black guy. It's a bunch of older white people who are trying to connect with him on his blackness first, and saying things like, I know Tiger, I know Tiger, right? And that's a situation that I've been in. I think every minority has been in. I imagine if you're a woman in a room full of men, you're viewed as a woman before you're viewed as a human being. On the surface, it's a harmless thing, but what I wanted to point out with this film is that it's connected to the deep horror of racism.
Comedy is where I'm from. Process of doing sketch comedy, week after week on Key and Peele, very much became about this idea of jujitsu, of judo. If you can predict where an audience is going to go or what they think you're going to do, you can use that momentum against them. All over this movie, I knew I wanted to have reveals. I knew if an audience thinks they know what's going on, and whether they like it or they don't, if you can show them that they've been watching something completely different the entire time, I think they have a respect. And there's a real intellectual catharsis that comes with that, and it's fulfilling for an audience. There was a while. I mean, the real big one in this. There's a few big ones. There's the Rose reveal, which was a very difficult thing to hide. That Rose was evil. You look at on paper, she's bringing him there. To expect an audience not to think that is almost impossible. So I had to kind of direct her and write that. As if it was a different movie, as if it was this love story, and to, try and convince the audience to just root for the two of them to escape together, or to think at its worst something is going to happen to one of them, and that was one of the most fun reveals to protect. But 2008, 2009. I developed the story for 5 years before I put pen to paper and wrote the script. For 5 years, this was a project that I felt like was ambitious enough that there was a good chance it would never get made. And I thought ambitious in the subject matter. The idea of doing a thriller that explores the victimization of black people. Again, I thought, no, this isn't going to pass the smell test for anyone. Every white person in this movie is evil. You know, that doesn't, you can't make that movie. You can't make a movie where a black man kills a white family at the end in cold blood and the audience is rooting for him. Yes, you can. I had internalized this idea and said, look, I can't worry about this movie getting made. I have to write my favorite movie that doesn't exist. And so that put me on this path of working on this, and it wasn't like I was every night, I was like, no, for 5 years. I allowed it to be my hobby. I allowed it to be the project that I would go to instead of watching television. That would be the most fun thing I could do with my time. And the whole purpose of it was to help me get better as a writer, because I know that from Key and Peele, when you're having fun writing, it works. Fun works, and that's kind of my advice to any writer or artist dealing with writer's block, which we all deal with, and follow the fun. If you're not having fun writing, you're doing it wrong. Shift up your tactic. How much does Hollywood, the studio, the producers sort of interfere with my vision? Now, I can speak from my personal experience. You know, when there were debates and when there were differing opinions of how something should go, my strategy was not to pop off.
The hard part.
I listened. I feel like every note that somebody can give you has something of worth in it, has something of value. If somebody tells me, hey, you shouldn't have this happen in the movie because it's too violent. Well, I'm thinking, well, it's supposed to be violent. What I don't do is go in and change my movie and take out the violence. What I do is ask myself, okay, I hear that. So how can I put in something earlier that makes that violence feel better? How can I bring this person into the perspective of the person who's committing the violence enough that I will never get that note again from anybody? I think it's important to be respectful of people's opinions, even if they're wrong. There's some reason they're having that reaction. It's to engage in dialogue with them and stand up for what you know the film needs to be.
And the Writers Guild Award goes to Jordan Peele for Get Out.
Thank you to the WGA. I think this means so much because writers know how fucking hard it is to write something. This was a passion project. It was something that I put my love into, I put my soul into. So getting this from you means so much. I started writing it in 2008, and there was a lot of ups and downs. People ask, what are you writing? What are you working on? I'd be like, I'm writing this thing about a black dude that goes to his white girlfriend's house, and the parents perform brain surgery on him and try and swap heads. I'd give it away instantly. And people would just look at me like, okay, you're losing your mind. I just want to say thank you, and everyone in this room that is a writer, keep taking chances, take big risks, put your love into it. It does pay off, and it's the hardest fucking thing, and it can take a long time, but our voices really do matter. Thank you very much.